Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this session, which is Work-Life Balance. My name is Noelani Cornell, and I manage the creative writing programs. With us today is Mr. Michael LaPlante, who is a graduate of our web design degree. So he's here just talking about, the title's pretty self-explanatory, the importance of maintaining a work-life balance and what exactly that means. So Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you graduate?
So I graduated, like Noelani said, from the web design and development degree back in August of 2010. The third graduating class through that program, so I was the baby through that program. And I've kind of been in the field ever since, doing odds and ends, different jobs in the web design and development world. And within the past 5 years, I've been lucky enough and had the opportunity to live and work and travel and work remotely. So I'm kind of all over the world while I am working and accomplishing things.
So I do want to find out a lot about what you're doing, in your field. But before we get there, I'm always curious to see, what was your experience like as a student?
Oh, the experience was absolutely great. I had a wonderful time. No, but in all seriousness, I was stressed 24/7. I slept very little. I always thought, I wasn't learning enough or I was learning too little. And don't be afraid of the failure. I know that's like a common theme with, if you've been to any of my talks, I've talked about that. I was not your A++ student when I went through. I failed a course in my degree. It was a rough month. Pretty much everybody in our degree failed that same month. But it was okay. Like I learned from it, and I learned, hey, like there's a lot of stresses, but it gave me a chance to step back and realize, this isn't the end of the world. This is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. Yes, I had some shortcomings here, but I get to do it again next month and, really learn from that. And it gives me another 30 days or 28 days, whatever it is, to really solidify those skills. So when I go forward, I have a really good knowledge. And the class I failed for web design and development was JavaScript. And that's what I do 100% of the day, every day now. So it's kind of ironic and funny, but it all worked out in the end.
Very, very good. So tell us, okay, so you bounced back from that failure. You graduated,
Oh, yeah.
the third graduating class from that degree. So post-graduation, immediately post-graduation. So what did you do on day one after, you went through the ceremony?
I woke up at 7:30 a.m., got dressed, and went to my job that I had.
So you had one.
Web design and development and the mobile degrees here on campus, it's technology in general. It's one of those very highly employable fields. You're probably going to have a job before you graduate type of deals. So I had been working with career development 3 to 4 months before I was graduating. They were finding the right placement for me. So, the day after graduation, I was up and I was going to a job in downtown Orlando. I think it's in now the Chase Towers. I don't remember what it's called before that. But I was up there on the 10th floor. Had a nice little, view out onto I-4. And, I worked there for about a year.
Very nice. So the transition from student to being a full-time employee. So what was that like?
Oh, it was shocking in a good way. So you're coming out of Full Sail. It's a super accelerated program. You're working. You're not sleeping. Then you get into for me, it was the corporate world, and they're like, "Hey, we need these 5 things by the end of the week." And I just kind of laughed because I was like, "These 5 things are something I do in 30 minutes when I was in school." So I did stuff and I was done in 30 minutes, and I was like, "Cool. What do I do for the rest of the week now? Like, this is great." And it's still that way, 8 years removed now, 9 years removed, whatever it is. The pace in a corporate environment or a startup environment is still much slower than the pace that you have at Full Sail. So when they say, hey, you're getting a real world education, you really are. I mean, there's been nothing that has ever been as challenging as Full Sail classes as far as my development and things go. I mean, that's not to say I haven't had, a 3 a.m. emergency where I've had to be awake and fixing a server that got crashed, or I didn't make the mistake of dropping an entire database on a giant client or anything like that, But it happens. You make mistakes and you learn from them and you figure out how to solve those problems, and sometimes it requires you to stay awake for 48 hours to fix those problems.
And so, okay, so that was your first job.
Yep.
So what was your second job?
Second job was being unemployed. It was a great second job. So after that first one, I wasn't really meshing. It was a smaller company. It was a website hosting company, essentially. And, they had told me one thing when they were hiring me. I was like writing tutorials on how to use Photoshop. And I was like, this is really a waste of my talent and the degree that I just spent to get money for to go to school. So I was doing the job search thing, but I kind of was a young 20-year-old brash individual, and I just kind of went in one day and was like, I'm done with this. I quit. In hindsight, that was probably a very, very, very terrible decision. I had no savings, no nothing. I was just like, oh, this is gonna land on my feet. It'll be great. About 8 months later, finally, after my unemployment term of playing video games, sending out a couple emails every day to try and find a job, career development came back into play through the school. And they were like, hey, we have this great opportunity. It's not here in Orlando. It's over in Tampa Bay. It's about 45 minutes. They want to interview you. When can you drive out there and take that? So that was kind of really my second job. I kind of took that. I went out there. It was a little scary. I took the job, and I commuted from Orlando to Tampa every day for about a year. And if you've ever done that drive in the morning or even around I-4, it's terrible. Like, I was waking up at 4:30 every morning. I'd leave the office in Tampa at 6, and I wouldn't get home till 10 p.m. So I didn't really have a personal life or anything because I was on the road or in the office working. But it worked out, and eventually I moved out to that area. I stayed with that company for another 2 years and then leaped on to the next job.
And so leap forward a little bit more. So which job are you at?
So now I've gone through a couple of jobs, started a company that failed, and I'm kind of in my current role now. Here at FireEye, and again, this job was one of those that just kind of fell in your lap. I was in the right place at the right time type of decisions, hanging out in like a Slack chat room, and somebody posted a job link that was like, hey, this company's hiring. And I was like, cool, I'll give it a shot. And come to find out that they really liked me, and they didn't like me for the technical skills, what I could do. They liked me for my humility. So like, they gave me, through the interview process, a couple challenges. They said, hey, this challenge is only supposed to take you, an hour. So I set a timer for an hour, and I said, all right, let's do it. I maybe got like 50% of it done, but I emailed them back and said, hey, listen, I spent an hour on this. I only got this far. Here's what I have. Can you guys give me some feedback on it, so I know for the future what I can do better in other interviews. And they came back and they said, hey, you're not going to have any other interviews. We want to hire you because of that trait. Versus the other people that were going through the same process that spent 4 hours on it and still didn't complete it and were like, hey, I'm still the greatest in the world type of situation.
And so the job that you're in now,
Yes.
you're saying you get to travel.
Yes, so I am a remote employee for FireEye, which affords me a lot of nice things. So the company is based out of California, Silicon Valley, Milpitas. We have offices in Dallas and Virginia, DC area. And I'm lucky to be on a team of 9 individuals who 7 of the 9 are mostly remote. So I get to work on my house. So, most days I roll out of bed and kind of go over to my office, which is about 10 steps, and I'm at work. So it's really great. But it also affords me the capability to travel the world, go to Southeast Asia, go to Mexico, go to the Bahamas, go around the domestic U.S., have a trip coming up that's going over to South Africa, and still allow me to work and figure out how to work and through the different time zones and be efficient through all that process.
But that brings up a really good point, because I think that's everyone's dream, is just being able to see the world and work remotely. So, but it takes discipline in order to say, okay, I could be out on safari, right now, but that you have projects that you have to work on. So how is it that you organize your life in a way so that you get your work done and, while you're in this really cool exotic place?
It's very tempting to not get your work done. You have to really be efficient and figure out how to get the most efficient work done in the shortest amount of time. So like when I did my recent trip to Southeast Asia last year, immediately after Hall of Fame, bad decision to travel the week after Hall of Fame. I was exploring Southeast Asia, specifically Vietnam and Cambodia during the day, which they're about 11 hours ahead. And then, come 1 a.m., everybody's kind of going to sleep. I'm sitting in front of my computer and working East Coast hours to be online, to be available to my team and any questions they have. Till about 6 a.m., I'd go to sleep. I'd get about 2 hours of sleep. Wake up, and I'd do it all over again. So, if you follow me on any of my social media stuff, everybody was like, oh, all your pictures were awesome. And I was like, yeah, you got to see all the glamorous side of things. You didn't get to see a lot of the sleepless nights and, the laptop lighting up the room, or especially over in those third world countries, trying to figure out how you even get an internet connection. Let me tell you, it's very difficult. You have to buy these little pay-by-go phones, and we're very spoiled here in the U.S., but you spend $20 for 500 megabytes of internet. You learn how to be very efficient with 500 megabytes of internet, because that is, let me tell you, that's not a lot. That's like you opening your email and closing it, and you used all your internet for the day. So you really learn how to maximize that data usage and get what you need and then move on to the next day and stay off of the internet and work off of the internet as much as possible too.
That needs to be a panel for the next Hall of Fame. For Hall of Fame 10 is, how to work remotely.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm
I've done one
proposing
in the
that.
past, so.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get to the topic of this particular session is work-life balance. So tell us about some of the challenges that you've had.
Yeah, so working remotely, there's a lot of challenges when you're at the house or in a coffee shop or any of those places that you're not in an office that you encounter. You can stay in your pajamas, you can go work from your bed, work from the couch, and it's a very tempting thing. And I love that you brought up discipline because it does take a lot of high discipline to be able to do that and force yourself to go into a place and into a work mode and not be like, oh hey, I can lounge around. And that's very important. There's little tricks like I've got a whole room specifically for an office that I only go into. But I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The first month that I was working remote, I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to work from the couch today. And then by 11 o'clock, I'm like, wow, this couch is really comfy. A nap sounds great. But you learn to be really efficient. You learn to over-communicate. You learn how to be efficient working remotely, because when you work remotely, everybody's kind of like, oh, hey, like, are you actually working? Are you playing video games? So your work kind of speaks for itself. You have a lot more communications with people and build up interpersonal skills, while all still having that life balance of realizing, hey, I have a family here that I need to take care of, or animals, or friends that want to meet me for lunch, or I still need to get to the gym, or hey, I'm in my house now 24 hours a day. I'm staring at the same, four walls. I'm going stir crazy. How do I, get out of the house and counterbalance that?
Yeah. So how do you do it?
That's where I got into a lot of networking. I was going out to networking events, and that's how I kind of would break it up. I'd go out, I'd meet people. That's how I do the talking. I'd go up to the bar up the street from me. Sometimes I'd go and work poolside from my pool. That way, I'm just not staring at the same stuff. But that's really important, because there is a lot of times where I was like, oh man, I'm really going stir crazy, staring at these same walls, and you kind of get into a rut, and then your mental capacity goes down, and you can tell you're not as efficient. And usually when somebody says, hey, I've hit this block or I've hit this wall, what's a trick you would recommend to get over that? I always say, just change up your environment. Like, go somewhere you love. If you love walking in a park, go to the park and try and work. We live in this wonderful day and age of technology where you can have an internet connection pretty much anywhere. You can tether to your phones. You can buy the little mobile hotspots that you can work with. So that allows you that capacity and freedom to also break up how you do that work and life. And it's very important to separate those two and not get inundated with, hey, I'm just going to work all the time because I have email on my phone, or because I have social media, they can reach me there, or because they can call me, and realize, hey, I need this mental health and this mental break. One thing that I've loved to do the past 2 years, and everybody kind of laughs, is after work, I just kind of go downstairs and I sit on my couch and I play games on my phone. It's like the most mind-numbing, mentally nothingness capacity. It requires no mental capacity after I've worked a long, hard day. It gives my brain that chance to refresh. It's just as terrible as TV, without all the drama that's on TV these days. So, it's one of those things, and for me, that's breaking it up. I know I have some other friends that love to, read after they get off of work. Other friends that enjoy going to sporting events and that kind of stuff. So really figuring out what that balance is for you and breaking that up is super helpful.
So you seem very gregarious and outgoing. I think part of the appeal sometime of working from home, working remotely, is that you don't have to deal with that out there. You're your own boss. Of course, you have projects that you have to work on, people that you have to answer to, but the social element is gone from that. So how do you not become a hermit?
It's great. I actually became a hermit. When I first started working remote, I became a hermit, and it was great.
It's great.
I had the really long beard, not well kept. No, but you needed to break out of that, and really, it's funny you say I'm outgoing, because I'm very highly introverted. So it was forcing myself to get out of the house and still have human interaction and do something. One of the ways I broke it up was I went and I got a puppy, because I knew that would force me to take breaks during the day even, and have a mental capacity to be like, okay, my dog needs to go for a walk. Let me take a 10-minute walk with the dog, and little things like that really helped break up my day because I would stare at a screen for 5 hours and not be able to get past the same problem. Then I got a puppy that was like, hey, I need to go out every hour. And then I'd come back to my desk and I'd be able to solve that problem. So
And
little
just
things
for
like
the
that.
exercise too,
Yeah,
right?
exercise
Like,
is great too. Also, I highly recommend not getting a puppy. They're wonderful, but when you work from home, they're very used to it. So actually, this week is the first week that my dog's kind of been alone for longer than 3 hours.
Aw.
So it's been kind of interesting to see how she's been interacting. I've watched her on the cameras at the house and see how she did for 9 hours before somebody could come and let her out.
Watch you tear up your couch while you're.
Oh no, she does that even when she's only alone for 3 hours.
So, as far as you feel like you at least from what you've told us, it seems like you figured out how to do this in an effective way that'll allow you to live your life. Do you feel like that there are in your evolution you still have other things to achieve? Do you feel like, as far as like career-wise, the work-life balance, do you feel like there are other things that you need to do?
Oh yeah, I'm always trying to find ways I can be more efficient, more positive. I mean, I have a pretty decent schedule now, on 9 a.m., 10 a.m. to like 3 or 4 p.m. type of schedule, which for most people sounds absolutely great. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm like, hey, how do I get that down to like an 11 to 3 type of schedule, and still get the same amount of work done, and prove that obviously to higher beings when you're in a corporate environment, that want you to still get the same amount of work done. So I'm always looking for little, tricks and stuff that really helps to maximize and get the most out of that, because where I'm at now in my career and what I've learned is I've done the long, 7 a.m. to 2 or 3 a.m. nights, and you get burnt out very quickly. And I've noticed the less hours I work and put in efficient work to those, and the more time I spend doing things that I love, which is coming back and giving to students or hanging out with friends and doing those types of things, the happier I am as a person, which in turn goes full circle and leads back to better work.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, well, I'm curious the kind of questions that you guys have for Michael. So if you all have questions, raise your hands. We have a couple of people with mics. I can't see anything. So raise your hands if you have any questions about him, about how he does.
This is the last session of the week.
That's right.
I know there's questions.
That's right. Make the most of it.
Hello, my name is Frank Camerata. I'm a show production student, and I wanted to know, so you mentioned having those long hours of going from like 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. or 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. repeatedly. What did you do to keep yourself running during that time? Because it sounds like you have no time to actually spare and keeping up mental health. What did you do? What is your trick?
I let my body rot to all get out. That was my trick. Honestly, I mean, I drank a lot of like Red Bull and Mountain Dew, and I had no concern for my health. And obviously, I'm in a better spot now. My health's in a better place. But I mean, I ballooned up to like 350 pounds. All I was doing was focusing on that. And it took a couple of friends to really tell me to say, hey, take that step back and look at it. And I'm in the technology field where it's a little bit easier to do that. When you're touring, it's kind of one of those things you really got to figure out. Hey, I got to set up the riggings and crawl in the trusses and everything, and we have our setup window in this hour and our tear down in this hour. So figuring out where to maximize. I mean, one of the best things, and some of the Hall of Famers this week have laughed at me. Some of the faculties laughed at me because, I'll have like 30 minutes in between each session. I'm like, great, I'm going to go in the green room and get a 15-minute nap. And they're like, oh, how's that restful? And I'm like, one of the best things I learned when I was working those long hours is to sleep wherever and get the best rest that I can. So I'm like the master of power naps. Like, oh, I can sleep standing up. So it's fantastic, but it really helps you to be efficient too. If you do it, there's a lot of studies around that, but like 20 minutes or less of power nap will really help you feel rested again for a few more hours. Again, I don't recommend doing that for long periods of time, but obviously in all of the degrees and programs that we're going into here at Full Sail, it's going to require that demand of long hours and stuff sometimes.
How do you disengage your brain enough to allow yourself to fall asleep?
It's one of those like very lucky things I've always been able to do where I just kind of like shut off. I just like can think about nothing, and it's fantastic. The joke in my family has always been we have this thing called the LaPlante stare, where I'll just be like staring into space and thinking about nothing, and people will like think I'm like trying to talk to them. They're like, did you need to say something? I'm like, no, I was just zoning out. This is great. This is a mental break. So I've always had that great capacity. I mean, I've told people, count sheep, find some type of like ritual that you do maybe at night, whatever it is, reading a book. Like my fiance, she loves to like go through some memes at night, and then that helps her fall asleep. And everybody's got those different things, reading books, listening to sleep sounds. But find whatever that is and then use that in multiple places because you kind of train your body. I know one thing, like music for me was big. So while I was going to school here at Full Sail and even now to this day, if I listen to electronic music, it doesn't matter, I'm going to stay awake. I listen to any other type of music and I can fall asleep instantly. So I use that as kind of a trigger when I know I need to stay awake. I know I really need to do a lot of hard work. I'm listening to electronic music. It drives other people crazy, through the walls of the house and stuff because they can hear it. I've got, sound system at the house, but yeah, it's one of those things. Like even when I'm like driving long hours and that's not working at all, I'm listening to electronic music because I know I won't fall asleep. But the minute I turn it off, boom, I'm out. And my body's trained even back from Full Sail days because your schedule changes so rapidly that once my head hits a pillow, it's game over. I mean, I'm out within 30 seconds. It's a fantastic talent, and if you can do it while you're here and train yourself to get used to that type of schedule, I would highly recommend doing it.
Huge blessing, yeah. Okay, any other questions that we have? Wesley? Okay.
Hello. I wanted to know, how do you do to beat like procrastination? Like when you have those instant gratification urges of, oh, yeah, I want to watch a movie, or hey, I want to play some games, and instead of working, how do you do to overcome those type of urges?
Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love procrastination. It's wonderful. When I was a student, I was like the master procrastinator. I waited till like the 9th hour, like the hour before I had to turn in an assignment, and then I'm like, oh, I can bang all this out in the last hour. And never went over well. And I did that the first few jobs too. And as I've learned as I've gone on to either pace myself or do that really efficient work and say, hey, if I work for 3 hours, I don't check email, I don't check my phone, I'm really super efficient, then hey, I can play that mobile game for 30 minutes. I can go watch that TV show. I can go watch the news and do something to reward yourself. And then it turns that procrastination almost into a positive of you set yourself into that mindset of, hey, I work for 3 hours, then I get a 15-minute break or whatever it is. And set yourself on a cadence like that. I mean, the Pomodoro technique is very good for that and getting through a lot of that procrastination and stuff. And then there are just some people that just don't get through the procrastination. And procrastination really leads up to you're not happy with something. Whether that's the work you're doing or you don't believe in it or you got assigned to it and you're just required to do it. That's where procrastination comes from. I know as students, I mean, I remember a lot of the times I'd get assignments and I was like, I don't really want to do this. I don't see the point in it. There's always a reasoning behind it, and it's the same once you get out into the job world. So that's really where all that comes from. So you just have to remember that too and look at it from that angle and say, well, what's causing me to not like this work? And how can I turn that into a positive for myself and say, okay, I don't like this, but if I do this while doing that, it'll turn into a positive and I'll enjoy it at the end of the day. Let's get one from this side real quick.
Hello, my name is Wesley. I'm from the creative writing program, and it seems like in our industries, the entertainment, creative industries that are much, I guess in a word, more unstable. There's a lot of people say that they're just in a constant state of fear that they're going to wake up one morning and whatever their program that they've been using forever to promote themselves is not working anymore or doesn't offer service anymore. Have you had that experience with that? And if so, how have you gotten over it?
Yeah, so I work in web, and in that realm, software is ever changing and it's evolving very quickly. The stuff I learned 3 months ago is no longer relevant. The stuff I use today is not going to be relevant in 3 months. If I'm afraid of that and I get stuck and never really wanting to continue learning and teaching myself, you're going to have that fear of, hey, this tool is good, if it crashes, it burns type of deal. If you become flexible and adaptable and say, hey, it's not the tool that really makes me great. It's my mind and the skill that I bring. It's very easy to get over that stuff and say, okay, there's this new tool. Yeah, I got to learn it again, but I can do the same stuff with this tool and more. There's always a positive over the horizon. I mean, they're not releasing software that's worse. It wouldn't sell if that was the case. So you just have to be adaptable to that and not not be fearful. If you're not willing to continue learning after you graduate, you're going to have a hard time in any creative field. If you're fine with continuing to learn, which, hey, here's the secret, you always need to continue to be learning to stay on top of things, you're going to do absolutely fine as you go forward and graduate.
Okay. Other question?
We got Mike right.
My name is Keenan Vikstrom, and I'm in game art. My question for you is, throughout your life experience, or those that you've worked with for relationships, I'm a father, a husband, I have twins, or those that are just in a relationship with someone else, what is your balance for them to balance between their home life and their work life? Because for me, it's easier to work at night when my kids are in bed.
Yep.
But what do you do, or what have you heard that can be passed on to those?
I've heard a bunch of different stories. I've heard of people getting night nurses to help out at night so you can focus or get sleep. I've heard of people having nannies during the day if they work from home. Usually what I like to do specifically is I have the room that's set off in my house. So I have like an open door, closed door policy. If it's closed, don't come in and bother me. If it's open, you can probably come in. You probably still should say, hey, heads up, because I might have a meeting coming up in 5 minutes. And I know a lot of people that are that way, especially with small children, because they get the open door, closed door type of policy more so than anything else. Obviously, there's always, odds and ends to those rules, but that's if you can somehow figure out whatever that is, maybe it's headphones on, headphones off, something that even small children, or I don't know how old your children are, but they can recognize, hey, daddy needs to focus, or hey, daddy doesn't need to focus. That's what you're really going for, something that they can cue on. And then obviously your significant others and stuff are probably a little bit older, so they get that. And just having that balance too. I mean, it was a very big deal. I've had a few relationships in my past that broke apart for one of the main reasons was because I was working too much. And it's on both parties in that to work on that. One party has to understand, and hey, you're wanting to build your career, and you have to understand, hey, this person's wanting to build their life with you. So you have to make that work and be intentional about it. It's not going to be easy, but you have to say, hey, I need to just put something down at 7 o'clock and maybe go have dinner with my wife, or hey, I need to go out with this friend tonight that I promised for the past 4 months I'd go out with. So you just have to be, very intentional in how you cross those borders. It's not easy to navigate. I don't have any crazy amazing tricks, but those little things, if you implement those and continue going forward, I think will be helpful.
All right. My name is Corey Pope. Another thing, almost to piggyback from what he said with the procrastination. So do you have any tips on how you cancel out distractions so that you can get as much work done as possible so that you can enjoy the rest of your day?
Yeah, so for me, I can work from pretty much anywhere, no problem. The best thing I ever did for me was buy noise-canceling headphones. And I can wear those things, and I can be in the loudest coffee shop. I could be sitting in here when they're playing the loud music, or outside with the stage, and they're just jamming away on the drums, and I won't hear anything. I'm in the zone, focusing. The biggest distraction I find, in a corporate setting, is people coming up and tapping you on the shoulder. And I know I made reference to this in another one of my talks, or I know I was telling somebody at some point during Hall of Fame week. I went so far as to the point where I had shirts made that was headphones on, leave me alone, headphones off, I'm ready to talk. And it was super petty, but it got the point across. I wore the same shirt every day for a month, and people finally were like, oh, hey, I get it. And then it was an unspoken rule. So I was very intentional about the point of hey, I'm trying to build these good habits for myself so I can get this work done. And not getting involved in, water cooler talk and fireside chat in the office that always happens, because that's why you have a lot of these employees that end up putting in these extra hours, is because they're oh, I haven't done enough work. Well, when you look at it, they went outside and smoked for an hour during the day, and they sat at the water cooler and talked for an hour in the day, and there's 2 hours of probably really efficient time that you spent kind of, BSing around with other people. We have any online?
Any online, any other questions here?
Nope. Any questions here? How are we doing on time? Really, no other questions? I'll give a hat to the next person that comes up with a good question. Nobody even wants a hat. Oh, there we go.
So my question is, what motivated you to shave your beard off whenever that was your comfort zone to go to for being at home?
What motivated me to shave my beard off this week?
I don't know. You said you had a really epic beard, and as a beard guy, that kind of saddened me.
Well, you know, when I
Was
kind of
that your
went out.
fiance?
Yeah, when no, she, although she has never actually seen me with a shaved beard, so it's always the joke. She said before we get married, she wants to see me with a clean shaven. No, it was kind of when I kind of went back out into civilization, if you will, and I was getting a lot of weird looks, and I was like, all right, maybe it's time to clean it up and look good. I was gonna say this week, if you saw me on Tuesday, I had even more of a scraggly beard, and the audio guys in the back are like, hey, you're getting a lot of beard interference with the mic, so I kind of went back and trimmed it up. So there's always that kind of thing, you gotta keep in mind too. But no, I'm a huge fan of the beards, all for it. Keep them going, but keep them clean kept and well maintained, and that goes to the point of dressing well for the job you want and that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh, I got another one in the back.
One more, I think.
This gentleman
sorry.
here
I
gets
think
a
we have time
hat.
for one more question.
Hi, my name is Triana. I'm in the creative writing program. My question is, when you come straight from home and you're far, and there's an event happening every 5 minutes, and you have so much work to do, but you still want to get out and enjoy your youth, how do you how do I manage that?
How do you manage it all? You don't sleep. No, honestly, that's one of my biggest regrets is I was always the person that loved sleep, and I kind of let my youth waste away. I mean, I'm still very young, but I can't go out and party hard or work till 4 a.m. and get up at 6 a.m. and go to class again. But that's one of those things you have to kind of really figure out what your balance is. How much of work can you do, and what are your big stressors, and how much fun time or me time do I need, and figure out what that balance is. For me, I don't need a lot of me time. Like an hour is good enough for the day, and then I can sit in front of a computer and work the rest of the day. Obviously, your homework is stressful. You definitely want to get that done and turn that in. But it's one of those, it goes to the procrastination point of don't wait till the last minute. I used to be the student that waited till 2 days later because I was on a every other day cadence when I was in school here. And I waited till a couple hours. If the class was at 1 p.m., I'd wake up at 8 and start trying to do the homework. Instead of my class ending at 4 p.m. and going home and working on it while it was fresh in my mind. And I believe here in school y'all have still the 4-hour lecture and 4-hour lab breakup for some degrees. So utilize that lab time. I know it was very free. A lot of our lab instructors were like, hey, show up for the start, and then if you want to go, you can go. I was always a student that bailed really early into that session. But that's why I always ended up at that procrastination level, because then I didn't touch it again until an hour before the class was due. So utilizing that time to the best of your ability, utilizing the lab instructors that are there with you, that really help, that'll take your stress level down. Most of the assignments should be accomplishable in those lab hours for the most part, especially with utilize other classmates, get together for group study sessions. That gets you some interaction with other people. You're working on the same stuff. Now don't plagiarize. Or copy somebody's code or creative writing, word for word. That's the worst thing you can do. I mean, I had classmates that did that, and it's very obvious from a teacher's perspective when you're learning to code if the code looks exactly the same. But getting together, that collaborative environment that you have if you're working with your classmates, that'll bring your stress level down because you're also going to build relationships that you're going to have in your career going forward too.
And I think just being efficient, I think you hit the nail on the head there. When someone was asking a question about procrastination, that you need to incentivize yourself. So if you know that you want to do this thing, but you have this project to do, so you need to be as efficient as you can, because as soon as you're done with this project, then you can go on and you can enjoy your youth. You can enjoy the thing that's out there.
Yeah, and you look at it from, you're sitting in those chairs now, you made a very intentional decision to be here at Full Sail for whatever passionate reason that you have to go into the industry that you're going into. It's very stressful and tough right now, but I promise you when you get out, you're going to have the world open up to you. You're going to feel like you have all this extra time. The stresses are going to be taken off of you. You'll get new stresses on top of you. But part of what the Full Sail experience is and something that you'll need to know as you get out into the industry is how to deal with all those different stresses and piling them on. My way of dealing with it is getting a ton of gray hair. But it's one of those, you learn to deal with it in different ways. And just staying on top of those different ways will really help.
Very good. Well, I think we're out of time. Yes? Yes. 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay,
That's one more question.
One more question.
We got another hand.
Okay, there's someone.
So my name is Christian Sanchez. I'm in the film program. My question is, what is the hardest assignment you've had to take on in your field?
The hardest assignment I ever had to take on. I think it was probably. Ooh, that's a good one. It was probably a project I did with Shell, the gas company. They needed it turned around in a week. I was the front-end developer for the project. They had another back-end developer, if you will, in a completely different area of the world, and they had a project manager in another completely different area of the world. And it was kind of like, you hear all those stories of people just chucking stuff over walls. That's very much what that was. I didn't get a good project brief. I was brought into it obviously very late when they realized, hey, we actually need a guy that's good at this to do it. So there was a very short time crunch. There was a lot of long hours. And I think that was probably the most challenging because it was very high demand in a very short time span. But that was also probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever worked on, because as you're driving down the street, you get to see all this banner collateral that you worked on, and this huge gas company that's using your work, and everybody's hitting their website to try and get, I think it was like a free $50 gas card or something like that. But that whole campaign and the way that all played out, that was probably to date the hardest work aspect related thing I've ever had to do. I've had a lot of other hard things of like starting a company and it failing on me and learning from that. But the hardest work related specific thing was probably that.
How long did that project last?
For me, a week. I think it was a 8 or 9 month project altogether. So that just shows you they went 8.5 months without thinking they needed anybody to do this front end work. And the week before they're going live. And it's not like I could ask for any more money, and their problem became my problem. So now I have this great saying of, your problem is not my problem, and I'm going to charge you more or something like that. And I learned from that environment to do that now, because they put me in such a situation where, I was pretty much locked away 24/7 just trying to get this thing out the wheel. And I couldn't ask the back-end developer for anything, because he was like, works on my end, you figure it out, buddy. He was one of the, those smug guys, so he wasn't a team player either. Do we have time for one more up front? No? All right.
No. Okay, guys. Well, Michael, I thank you so much for your time. And I think, yes. I don't know if you have time afterwards to hang around for questions.
Yeah, I'll stick around for a few minutes.
So thank you guys for coming. Enjoy. I hope you're going to go to the block party tonight. Yes. Yes, enjoy your youth. Yes.
All right, when you go out
have a
the
good
door,
time.
go down this way. Exit to your left.
Oh, that's right, because it's
Exit to your
closed
left.
up front.
Thanks, everybody.